Morning. Welcome to the Monday 10 a.m. business meeting. We'll just start right off in HR.
Good morning, Jessica Warren, Human Resources. First item I have is a request from Public Works. They have one of their solid waste operators who has put in his resignation and they would like to fill his position.
Okay. I don't see any objection.
Next item I have comes from Kathy, but I don't see her. So I'll start. So she's requesting. Okay. There she is. So she's requesting to fill a risk and safety analyst position. This would be at the same level as the HR analyst, the public records analyst, the budget analyst. This position would be responsible for assisting the risk manager and some of the higher level workers' comp, tort claims, being able to assist him in those duties.
This is a position that was just sitting open, right? We hadn't filled it.
New position.
Oh, it's a new one.
Yes. There's the capacity in the budget due to other unfilled positions, but this is a new position.
Any comments on it? I think we've kind of had discussion on that a little bit.
Yeah, I don't remember the discussion so much. We've been adding and adding and adding. So this one comes a little bit as a surprise. So I'd like to hear what Kathy has to say on that.
Okay. Is this on? Okay. Good morning, Kathy Funk Baxter, Finance Director. Once I took over as the interim and filling in for risk manager duties, I did come across quite a few things that are lacking, not been addressed properly, things of that nature. Workers' comp issues are very confidential and things like that. There's about 30 per year of just those, and managing that contract with our external third party provider. And then not only that, but also the training that we have with NeoGov. Currently, there's a lot of work that needs to be done to get that caught up and to get it more efficient and properly implemented than it currently is. And this position would also assist with that as well. So there's a lot of duties in looking at this that just the risk manager alone cannot complete by themselves. And I've experienced it firsthand, so.
I am curious, at the time you experienced it firsthand, you were doing 3 other jobs too.
Yeah, yes, and it was
okay, so
a lot.
Maybe Dennis can help me out here. When I first came on board, Clyde was the only person in risk management.
Clyde occupied the office in the corner. That's basically been vacant since he left. If I remember correctly, there was a staff person assigned within OFM to provide assistance. A lot of it is record keeping and secretarial stuff. It's not unlike the requests that we've had from those that have served in the position beforehand that we turned down. I think, yeah, the previous one had requested some assistance, and
I'm not. If the work is there, I'm not concerned. One of the statements made is NeoGov, and I actually am getting tired of hearing NeoGov as an excuse for a lot of things. And that shouldn't be a permanent job, or should it?
Excuse me, so should the analyst be a permanent job?
No, should, you mentioned that a task for the analyst would be to bring NeoGov up to snuff, if you will, and efficient. I don't know what all those mean, but it doesn't sound like it's a continuing job. It
Yeah.
sounds like it's a, let's get it done and then we're done.
Yeah, I agree, but managing it to make sure that the appropriate trainings are assigned to the appropriate job classifications. And as we add new individuals and things like that, there will be some work involved in making sure that it's running properly and administered properly, and that we're staying up to date with positions as they change and things like that. So I agree, neo.gov is a great tool and should not require tons of workload, but it will require some administration, ongoing administration, to make sure it stays up to date and properly administered.
And in the meantime, the risk manager has or risk officer, not sure what we call it, has a lot to catch up on, just like you did.
Yes,
But
yes.
that should ease off once the system is understood, or do you see that as, do you see the risk officer as part of a continuing process to improve things in the county?
Yes, I see the risk officer being more involved in higher level. There's analysis that we haven't even got around to doing as far as analyzing certain risk and looking at improvements and efficiencies and things that we can do as a county to have a full enterprise, what I call an enterprise risk management system, and looking at, there's changing risk every day. From complexities to governmental regulations, things like that. So their job, once we catch up with a lot of stuff, yes, will be more managerial, more risk analysis and assessments.
Can you give me an example of something that you think I might not have thought about that risk officer would do that is important, takes time?
Well, one of the things that that is ever changing is the complexity of security. For example, we're installing more security cameras and making sure that we have assessed all the risk associated with that. You install cameras, but you have to have the proper monitoring of those, the proper responses to those cameras. And that's one task that's just one that's cropped up in the last few weeks that we need to look at.
I think, yeah, I would guess even the jail would like to have someone they could talk to about risk. Is that true, Marin? Did you see the bus come by? No, I was suggesting that one of the tasks a risk manager would do is going around the county and finding out where high risk situations are. And I can't think of any higher risk situation than the jail.
Mhm.
And so I thought you would like to have an extra hand there from someone in this office, if you will, going down that way. And there are a lot of things you need to discuss that.
It's actually one of the areas that the risk pool has put more emphasis on this year, from additional trainings, additional assessments, things like that. So it's one of the areas that the risk pool has recognized as high risk, and all of our correction areas would benefit from additional analysis of that risk.
And I assume the analysis would include getting involved with HR and any self-funding plans.
Yes.
Yes.
Jessica nodded very quickly. Okay.
Yes.
So the risk manager would be doing the in-depth review and studies. but they have to have the data to go on. And that data has to be
Right.
put into the system, whether it's NeoGov or whatever system that can hold us accountable, cover our risk of not ensuring safe working conditions and responding to charges of harassment, all those kinds of things that are involved
Right.
with risk. And it seems a consistent shortcoming that's the stuff that's not been done.
Right. For
And-
example, in
yeah.
neo.gov, we're looking at the reports that say who hasn't completed their training in 30 days and continuing to follow up on that. Somebody has to follow up on that.
So I think we're struggling with the idea. We've not had somebody who's fully committed to doing the job yet. And so it's hard to say how many assistants need to be on the crew. I'd be a little bit more comfortable with going forward, assuming this is a position that we'll review after a certain period of time, just to make sure it's the right fit. Because, we don't know what we don't know, and we don't have anybody putting that piece together.
Yeah,
So
I can assure.
I get the sense we're perhaps putting the cart before the horse.
Yeah, but I can assure you that if you want to have risk management done well, it cannot be done by one person. And therefore, the office needs an additional person in there to help support the data gathering, the day-to-day items. And what's happened is your risk manager, if they're doing the day-to-day items, like workers' comp, for example, they're not involved in assessing risk and helping us build a robust risk management program.
I'd like to add, I've been very pleased with the changes our clerk of the board has initiated, and underlying everything is a sense of cross-training is not quite the right word, but a cooperation. There are no job boundaries. Hey, do you have a couple hours? I could really use a hand here. I assume all of that is still incorporated in your thinking of a
Yes.
harmonious. Okay.
Yes, it is. And this risk analyst would also assure that if the risk manager, for example, is going to be on vacation, that we have another person that things could be reported to.
Yeah.
Right now, you don't have that. And so, other than myself. And so, anyway, so that's another reason why having the risk analyst in place will assure us having some continuity of operations and risk management.
I would, I'm kind of agreeing here because I think there's two different roles. We have a person that really is to manage the risk with our pool and all that kind of stuff. So we're not paying higher costs down the road. And I wasn't here a long time with the other risk manager, but I know some things fell through the crack, and I never spent enough time with that employee to be able to definitively tell you that it was more on the employee side or more on just the broadness of the scope side. So I'm not making any comments there, but I think somebody to overlook the whole risk picture for the county and make sure that we're not doing something stupid and we end up paying for it down the road probably makes sense. And then a person that kind of takes care of the admin and the day-to-day. So this person can actually do what I would call risk management.
So I noticed Tracy is here, and she has history with the operations up here. Tracy, my question is, when Clyde was running the shop for risk management, did he have access to the person to put together all those bits of information on who took the classes and all the paperwork that was involved? Oh, okay, yeah. Okay,
That was slick how she did that, isn't it?
Yeah.
okay, so
I'm okay with it.
yeah, let's go forward.
I think it's, yeah.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. And then the only other items I have are executive sessions at the end.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. You can stay here.
Budget. Yeah, one chair to the other.
Just switch chairs.
That's very charitable.
Yeah,
Oh.
I need my exercise. Kathy Funk Baxter, Finance Manager again. Budget time, very busy, reviewing final things. We have slated a workshop for tomorrow on mental health tax to go over the entire package of what things are funded with mental health tax. And so that's on the agenda for tomorrow, budget workshop. Then we also did a modification on budget workshops for next week. We tried to put in place another meeting so that we could do an overview of the entire budget, revenues and expenses, and particularly highlight those new items. But I understand one of our commissioners is going to be out. And so we may want to, on November the 1st. So we're looking at an alternative, switching that up and maybe doing part of the workshop on the 30th and another part of the workshop on the 31st. So we're still working through those.
Yeah,
Because I'd like to have all three commissioners available when we discuss full revenues and full expenditures.
I'd agree with that.
Yeah, I
You
think
guys,
that's
yeah.
important. In fact, I'd offer up that you give me a call and say, I need you here at 9 PM for the meeting, and I'll be here. It's just,
Yeah,
that's,
we won't do that, but.
Okay. But on your very first statement, that was regarding the mental health tax. I don't know if my colleagues agree with me, but I would like to see something that really has decoupled that from what that funds to first order. To second order, you can't. But it's, can we survive without the mental health tax? We've done some homework, and I think the supplanting language is such that I don't think we'll have a problem stopping it and starting it up again. So it's one of those things where I would want to focus on how we're going to use the money as opposed to specific. I'll stop. I cannot explain it well, but we have at least two decisions where the second decision is what programs are going to be impacted, and that's actually a multi something or other.
Yeah,
Oh, and then we have the opioid funding also that can impact this discussion at some point.
potentially. So, yeah, so on the mental health tax, one of the things that you're going to be reviewing is also, which Gina's already provided some information, but that's going to be presented in that workshop, is what does the fund balance look like on the mental health tax and utilizing those funds as well.
Yeah, what if scenarios are useful?
Excuse me? Can you
What if scenarios are useful?
Yes, what if? Yes.
Yeah.
And then I tried right before we came to look to see if the sales tax information was available for October distributions, but it wasn't out there yet. So I don't have that for y'all today. I'll have it for you next week.
For October or August?
Well, it's the October distribution, which is actually the
August,
August, which is actually August collections.
So that'll be the back to school sales.
Yeah, so last month I reported that the difference between 22 and 23 was like a 19% increase, which is unusual. And so I wanted to see what the next one looks like to see if it's leveling out, but it wasn't available. So I don't know if they're behind or what.
They're getting flowed off the money. Back in digress to a story back in the banking days, large corporations would set their payroll count, like if they were in Washington State, they'd set it out of Wilmington, New England or something back east because that 2-3 day float
Float.
on the check, they'd make some money off of.
But
Delaware.
Yeah, doesn't really work anymore in today's age, but back in the day, yeah.
yeah, so I'll have those numbers probably next Monday. That's it. That's all I have to report today. We had some interesting things. We had, speaking of risk management, we had a fire. And I think they're going to report on that today
Yeah,
over the weekend. So, also,
Not just an annual fire, a fire on top of the landfill.
yeah,
How'd
Yeah.
that work? I don't know.
that's odd, isn't it? It'll be interesting to see what the
Yeah.
fire department, what they come up with as to how it started and stuff.
so, okay,
Okay,
that's
thank you.
all.
Corrections.
Good morning, Marin Fox, Director of Corrections. I'll provide an update on the population first. Today, we are at 230 inmates. We had 51 bookings over the weekend. I looked at the bookings to get some kind of comparison information on what we're booking on. We had 7 new bookings for the controlled substance, the misdemeanor controlled substance, and 4 bookings for failure to appear. So that's a warrant. That means they were booked on it before, didn't do what the courts wanted, and they were booked on the warrant. We had 6 DUIs and then one warrant for DUI. So they're kind of controlled substance and DUI are looking to be pretty close as far as bookings go.
I'm sorry, could you repeat the last one of the DUIs? Which ones were alcohol and which ones were drugs?
We don't know that necessarily. There were 6 fresh DUI citations and 1 on a warrant. We have an item on, are there any questions on that?
Oh, curiously, I was getting on the freeway and the fellow in the car ahead of me had his window down and vaping smoke was coming out in volumes. It had a strange smell to it.
We get
That
DUIs
has
for
nothing
that
to
as
do
well.
with anything except
Yeah, sure.
I went around him as quickly as I could.
Yeah, a DUI can be anything, drugs or alcohol.
Yeah.
Any other questions on bookings? We have an item on the agenda tomorrow. It is an amendment to our DOC contract. There was, it's been expired since July. We were working through some data sharing language that they added this time that had previously not been in our contracts. There were no other significant changes to the contract. This just adds our per diem increases for the next 3 years.
Do we have to negotiate a new price?
It's basically built in at 5% by the legislation. So that's the most they can do. So we get a 5%
There's always
increase.
a 5% escalation, and this is going to be 3 years again?
Right. It will expire in 25.
Yeah.
Yeah.
June 30th, 2025.
Right. They
Yeah.
typically do a 3-year. It's the data sharing language took a little bit of time. Kim went through it and then ultimately we had to have David Berger speak with their attorney to work out some language until they were comfortable with it. But it doesn't really affect us, but it's language they're wanting in the contracts.
So I'm a little curious as to how your department may be impacted with the change at the DOC incarceration program. They're going to be housing up to 60 firefighters from Larch Mountain.
Mhm.
They can walk away if they get a chance. And do they then get picked up and sent back there, or do they come to the county jail? Because that's what
right.
happens when when their current clients are in violation, they get picked up and sent to us.
Correct. I've not heard a lot of detail on how they intend to use that facility or if that's even a for sure option for them. I understand that if they're going to use it to house the inmates who are firefighters from Larch, it would be more of a secure facility than it is right now. It's being used for work release. So those people have the ability to come and go job search, go to a job. They have more freedom. If they're going to use it for this purpose, I believe it will be a more secure situation and they won't be able to leave unescorted.
How soon do we have an update?
I can check with DOC, but I haven't heard anything in a while. And last I had heard that was something they were still considering, but it wasn't a for sure. But I don't know if Dennis, you've heard something
So,
else.
it's only what I've gleaned out of the sometimes daily news.
Mhm.
That there had been a challenge. The union of the corrections officers challenged the decision to shift. And that was thrown out by the court, said it's within the right of the department to make those kinds of changes. So that led me to assume it's happening imminently when
Then I've
facilities
recently heard
close.
otherwise, that it is not a for sure. And there's some, I think maybe some zoning issues with City of Longview. I've heard that as well. I can see if I can get some more information. Depends on who you ask at DOC.
And yet it's
Some
right
people
next
don't
door
know.
to the jail. I'm not quite sure how that
I'm
there could
not
be a
sure
zoning
either.
problem, but
Yeah. I'll try to get some updated information by next week.
I am a little surprised that the department doesn't do a better job of communicating with their colleagues, so.
Yeah, well, I think the divisions are very, some people have information on certain things and they're very siloed, it seems.
Yeah.
So
Okay, thank you.
I don't have any additional information unless you have a question.
How many DOC inmates are in now, and on average, I would guess that's been trending up, but
DOC inmates in the county jail?
yeah.
Well, we accept 4 a day. They're typically not bringing us that. It looks like our average for DOC right now is maybe between 5 and 10 inmates
It
on
used to
DOC
be-
only.
In the past, it used to be a lot higher, right?
Right.
So what has changed?
One thing that has changed is the Blake decision reduced their caseload by a lot. I believe, last report, maybe they were 700s or so, maybe they're 400s now as far as how many people they're supervising. They've also made changes in the way that they sanction. The DOC is able to sanction. They're using alternative sanctions rather than booking them into jails. So that's decreased it. And we prioritize taking inmates from local law enforcement over holding inmates for the state. So that is why they're limited to 4 a day, though they're typically not bringing us that many.
So I know this is not a fair question. If you can put yourself in the shoes of the public, is this an improvement or not an improvement? Public safety being the
Sure.
consideration.
I've heard certainly some frustration from DOC CCOs, the ones that are working on these caseloads. Frustration is to the changes and what that means as far as how they're able to sanction and effectively work their caseloads. I know that they are not happy necessarily with all of these changes, but it's state government.
Well, just to clarify that, I heard this right on back to the contract. The 5% each year, that's an RCW maximum. We can negotiate up to 5%.
Correct.
Okay.
And we used to be at 3% and had to spend quite a bit of time to get us to 5%, but 5% is the most you can do once you have a contract. But if you didn't have a contract with DOC, you can come in higher. So the rates vary across the state depending on when you entered into the contract. If that makes
Okay.
sense. Yeah.
So our contract then limits us to 5% maximum.
Right.
And the contract comes up every 3 years,
That's correct.
and we have a ability to negotiate that if we want to, or we.
My understanding, unless something has changed, we have an ability to get 5%, which is what we get.
Yeah.
You can't renegotiate your base and they can't go above 5.
Okay.
So just to be sure I understood, at the end of the contract, the most you can get in the following contract is again 5%.
Correct.
That seems so strange.
But if an entity were to not have had a contract with DOC, they
Yeah.
could start higher. And then they'd be limited to the 5%.
So really, it depends on the onset of the contract, whenever you start.
That's correct. Yep.
Okay.
And we've had a
That
contract
makes
with
more
them for,
sense.
Yeah.
we've had a
okay.
contract with them for, I don't know, since like 2005. Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
Thanks.
So along those lines, if you could take more DOC inmates, would you think that's a good thing from the management of the jail perspective?
It depends. I think with DOC, we have the ability to remove them from our facility and say, DOC, you have to get this person out of here by tomorrow. So they're kind of a low risk, they can be a low risk inmate to take on, and we can also just say no to them, and we don't have that ability with local law enforcement. So
Yeah.
it can be a good partnership. The numbers for DOC, and they've made a lot of changes. So I'm not sure, I have not heard from them that they're wanting to bring in more than 4 a day, because we're not typically even reaching that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Anything else? All right, thank you.
Thanks, Marin. IT. Oops.
We have a 10:30 executive session for litigation with an outside attorney. I don't know if it was,
Oh, we do?
yes, I'm sorry, it may have not been on the agenda.
Then if we have that scheduled, we better do that. Do you know how long?
It's probably well, I'd say 20 minutes. We need to allow 20 minutes.
So executive session, potential litigation, 20 minutes?
Yes.
Okay. Sorry,
Sorry.
Kim.
In that case, maybe the clerk can let Public Works Services know that we're very likely going to be late.
Yeah.
We just do all four of them? One in a row, all in a row, as long as we're going away.
Kim, are they? I mean, Jessica, how long are the others? If we're gonna do it, should we just do them all?
Don't forget the optimistic factor.
Yes.
Well, we'll take care of this one and then. So instead of having departments sit here all day, it's kind of inconvenient on us, but that's okay.
Yeah, so we have Doug and we have an outside attorney and we have our risk manager.
Okay. Let's get that. We'll do that.
The board is extending the executive sessions for 5 minutes until 11 o'clock. Thank you.
Back from an executive session, no decisions were made. Okay, Kim, sorry about the delay.
Morning, Commissioners. Kim Hort, IT Director. We are about halfway through our phone deployment. We are going on our 3rd week, so we have about 220 phones left countywide. The team has been working really hard, and again, I'm really thankful that we have a good team on our back, on our side, on our back, whatever. The technical audit has been submitted for CGIS, and then now we're just doing the verbal audit later this month with Washington State Patrol. Last week, IT participated in the Employees Benefit Fair, and that was fun to advertise benefits that IT provides to the county, such as discounted pricing through Dell and Microsoft, plus some other benefits like password vaults and stuff. So it was nice to see everyone there. Wednesday, we have a workshop scheduled with you to go over the retention policy with our legal team. So stay tuned for that. And then other than that, I don't have much to report.
Would you repeat that about the retention policy?
Legal will be joining us during the workshop on Wednesday to go over the retention policy and have a discussion and get your feedback.
That's on a
Wednesday?
Tuesday, on a Wednesday.
Short and sweet.
Figuring out my phone, so we're good.
Thanks.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, I had asked about our interface into the API from the phone, so you could gather a bunch of data. Is that,
We are still working on other priorities. We need to set the certificate and security policies and then build out the training guide. So it's
Okay.
on our radar, but it's not our
Yeah.
priority.
Okay. Should we take care of Jessica? You want to take care of, you said about 20 minutes. And we're looking at performance of a public employee, qualifications of an applicant and collective bargaining. Oh, okay, 20 minutes for all three? Okay. We will adjourn to executive. We're back from an executive session. No decisions were made.
Hello again, Jessica Warren, Human Resources. A couple further items. I would like to request to fill the planning manager position in building and planning.
I'm okay with that.
Okay,
Siobhan?
And then requesting to move the Health and Human Services Deputy Director up 2 steps in her current classification, which would place her at step 7.
Good.
And then I have a number of items from the assessor's office, so maybe if I could just go down the list and then do the approval at once, does that work?
sure.
Okay.
And the impact is to begin some salary changes.
Correct.
for the
Yeah,
long
there's
term.
a few reclasses and then eliminations as long as also adding new positions. So it's kind
And
of one
these-
request as a whole.
And these were ones that had been discussed in open session
Yes,
previously.
these were presented during the budget
Yeah.
meetings for personnel requests. The assessor would like to start making these changes sooner, so we're bringing those to you today.
And the proposal includes adequate budgetary capacity to implement those
Yes,
without any need for
correct. The assessor
additional
has
monies from the general fund.
plenty of budget in her current budget. So the first item is to add a new customer service specialist, add a new appraiser 1, add a new residential appraiser supervisor at salary grade 535, eliminate the lead industrial appraiser. This position's been vacant since December 2022. And eliminate the lead residential appraiser. Promote the trainee industrial appraiser to just a industrial appraiser, removing that trainee level. Reclassify 2 customer service specialists to admin assistant 3s. And then reclassify 1 full-time residential appraiser to a part-time residential appraiser.
Okay,
All right.
Okay. Thank you, commissioners. That's all I have today.
Can we go to lunch now?
yeah. Any quick miscellaneous before we adjourn this first one?
It occurred to me as looking over our Monday agenda, we probably need to add the risk manager back in. We took that out when the risk manager left. And
Yeah.
we've got a risk
Now,
manager.
now that we
back,
got
so
that position back, I agree.
Apparently his name is Jeremy.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Okay. Hearing nothing else, we will adjourn the 10 o'clock meeting.